Hello and welcome to The Hero Spouse. I'm Kendra Ruth, here to answer one of your questions about marriage and midlife crisis. Today we have an anonymous female left behind and forward moving spouse. She has a bomb drop of September 1st, 2022 and a date of marriage of 2015. She has a clinging boomerang who is a low energy wallower. So first, we're going to start out with saying that September 2022 is just 6 months ago. So we may have a low energy wallower. We may have somebody who's trying out low energy or who is going to transfer. And we have a clinging boomerang who may change. By 6 months, usually we can tell that they're that, but I like to oftentimes let you know that I don't call it until 12 months in case. So there can be more ups and downs in that first year as they're cycling. But for right now, we are seeing clinging boomerang and low energy wallower, and that's helpful. She says, after bomb drop, my husband refused to talk about things and said that being on his own made him happy. However, in December, he admitted that he's actually very unhappy and that he was sorry. Still, he was adamant about divorce. In February, he started initiating contact, saying he was open to talking and that he has started therapy. I like that. There are pros and maybe a lot of cons regarding therapy, but I still like that he has started therapy, especially that he initiated it. It wasn't marriage counseling. Now, they can go into therapy and the therapist can just take the you need to be happy route and guide them towards whatever. It doesn't matter, divorce, whatever, and there's a lot of blame and your side isn't in there. But starting therapy, just that he initiated it, is I'm trying to figure out, there's something about me and I don't know what it is. In the email I put out yesterday, I talked about insight and self-awareness. And it takes a long time for them to get there, but there's a desire to get there. That's still a start. It's a tiny seed. But there's a desire to, I don't understand why I'm like this, but I want to. I want to figure out what's going on with me. So he started therapy. He initiated the conversation last week. It ended up not being about anything in particular. He said he's sorry for hurting me and that he thinks about how I'm doing every day. And I want everyone to think about that. This is not uncommon. They think about you. They feel bad, guilty, shame, all of those things. They stuff them down. But this is a confirmation that he's admitted to not being happy. Even when they appear happy, they say, I'm happy, I'm happy. He's admitted he's not happy. So right now, I agree with you on the low energy wallower description just because he's admitted this stuff. Replayers avoid it for longer. He said he stopped drinking and he realized that he's been avoiding his problems. Great. He didn't bring up divorce or reconciliation, either of them. We talked about what we've been up to. It felt like the kind of conversation we used to have. I think there's been an alienator, but I don't know if she's still in the picture. I don't want to get my hopes up, but it seems like a positive development. I'd appreciate your thoughts on managing communication going forward. So the first thing I want to tell you is I want you to, I hate manifesting negativity, so I'm not trying to do that. I want you to be realistic, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. If this is in a midlife crisis, it's new, still in the first 6 months. So that getting your hopes up, you're right. You're right to tread carefully and be wary. This may very well be he is cycling and may not be aware that he's going to cycle down again, or he's afraid of cycling down again, or the alienator is out of the picture a little bit, and that's why you're seeing more of him. Or this particular alienator, it just didn't take on limerence. Another one might be there. And I don't mean that he has one yet, and I don't mean that he has one that he knows about waiting in the wings, but he is susceptible. If that happens, all bets are off on the current context, because that moves it to a whole different neighborhood, okay? Because then there's limerence. Now, a lot of people wonder, if they don't have an affair, is it faster? If they're low energy wallower, is it faster? No. Or yes. There's an interesting thread on the Facebook page about, but there are no real experts, are there? And how do we know these timelines? And I completely agree with the devil's advocate on that thread. Because these aren't things that where we have these kind of statistics for. I say 3 to upwards of 7 years. Many say 3 to 10. Jim Conway said 2 to 7. He didn't say any upwards or anything like that. Some give timelines. I hate those, but it's hard not to. So I want you to proceed with wariness. You haven't talked about having children, and it looks like you were married for about the same amount of time I had been married when this happened to me. And so my approach was really quite different probably than others. I didn't have to worry about the kids. I didn't have to worry about the damage doing to the kids, but I also didn't have to worry about all of the additional challenges of him visiting the kids, or you have to be there for the kids. First thing, if we had split up, forgetting emotions, it could have been clean. You take these items, we take these items. We even had separate bank accounts the whole time anyway. There was a much cleaner thing there, but we still had things to come home to. It just wasn't going to be as messy. I was able to take greater risks, however, because I didn't have some of the, I hate calling my children baggage, but you know, it can be that way when you have children. We didn't have the baggage. I didn't have to worry about what's this going to do to the kids. So when he wanted to come home, yeah, I let him. I am not telling you to do that. I'm not telling you not to. I don't like giving the direct advice to those with kids to just let them come home. With you, I think that is something, if you understand the risks, that it doesn't mean you're at reconciliation or rebuilding, which is actually beyond reconciliation. This isn't a real return. And yet he might believe it is. He might authentically want it to be all of those things. He may be genuine. But it doesn't mean he's going to come home the changed person. He might get more depressed, and he might go away again and again and again. So this is what I want you to think about when you think about what's coming and what is the future holding in his midlife crisis. So what she wants, however, because I'm not actually through reading. You don't want to get your hopes up, but it seems like a positive development, the last statement. I just appreciate your thoughts on managing communication going forward. So since this situation is new, you'll hear me talk about decreasing communication until it is at a level where they aren't too annoyed by how frequently, if you are initiating smart contact, they aren't annoyed by the frequency of it, and you might have to test that out. You have a clinging boomerang. If he's a clinging boomerang, you probably don't need to worry about how often I should initiate, because clinging boomerangs do that for you. They do the initiating. You're in earlier enough where I don't want you to worry about it. Contact him, or let him do the contacting right now, and you respond. So you may contact him because you're responding to a contact. So it's not just answering the phone, but it is calling back. That is fine. Don't jump through the hoops to do it, but do it. You manage communication by being there for him right now, by showing him you believe in him, by praising him. This may be a phase at a time where the Laurel Doyling option is a great one, where you give him the praise. Show him that you believe in him. Because there could be a time later in the future as this progresses where you, and this might be a few years away, where you have to stop doing many of these things. You set up stronger boundaries where suddenly you have a no contact, and then and so you tell him he's not supposed to initiate contact with you, and they still may do that. But that's later. Right now, this is a rebuilding our foundation phase for you, not rebuilding our marriage. You're rebuilding a foundation so that he has something strong to want to return to. You're showing him the changes that you are and have made, that you're making and you have made. And part of those changes are the praises you give to him. Some of them might be what my husband felt was he was shocked that I that I loved him, that I didn't want to divorce along with him once he told me. He just thought I would agree to it, partly because we didn't have kids and I wanted kids. So did he, but he was using that as an excuse. Partly because my parents were divorced. In other words, I was a child of divorce, so I had a history of it. And so it wasn't new to me. Whereas my perspective was, that's one of the reasons I am the opposite. One of the reasons I don't want it is because I know what it is. So he was shocked. But also, I had to tell myself that I learned I do want him. I hadn't asked that question before because it hadn't come up. But we didn't have kids. We knew we both wanted children. So I had to say, what do I want? I was young. Do I want to just go, split up so that I can go and give myself time to heal? Because I have a few more years where I still have time to find somebody else. It was a tight window, but I could find somebody else, start a family. Or do I want to take this risk here? And I chose him with the risk that I might never have children. And if you get technical on that, I've adopted children because we didn't know I was infertile probably at that very time. But it also took long enough that, I was going through a window where I was going to be getting older and my fertility was going to be going down as a general population of the women. It was going down. One of my first research things before I knew midlife crisis was fertility after 35 because I was 32 and a half at bomb drop. So I had to take all that into account. I chose him and I let him know, you know what? I am so sorry if you felt that I made having children more important. And I told him that. Now, the last year before bomb drop, he'd been pushing more than I had. But at the trauma of bomb drop, I finally just cried, just give me a baby and go. Whatever, just that one thing. And so I did make my apologies for that statement. So you might, if you don't have kids, and you might have them. You might have more wiggle room in this. But whether you do have children or not, because I am not saying encourage him or let him come home. If he talks about it, you may be open to it. But right now, the communication, I want that to be on your end as open as needs to be. That doesn't mean about the topic. It doesn't not mean that. When it comes to the topic, in other words, don't have relationship conversations, that sort of advice that you get everywhere. If he starts it, be not concerned, but be aware if it goes off the rails and you need to steer it back, or if you think this isn't a good time and steer it out of that. But you may go with it as well. You didn't initiate it, okay? Or right now, you're just also rebuilding a friendship. This is the paving the way or rebuilding the foundation of your us so that when he is more ready, he knows there's something to return to that is comforting, that is stable, that is secure. You are a whole and healthy person. Okay? I hope that's helpful. And I will see everybody else in the next question.